Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about healthy fats. We have omega-3, 6, and 9 fats, polyunsaturated, and monosaturated fats. Of course, we know what the saturated fats are, those of milk and meat, um, and eggs, and some commercial grain oils, but mostly I'm going to talk about the other fats. And the monosaturated fats are the omega-9 fats, and they actually have an inhibitory effect on the cancer cells as well as antioxidant properties. Um, they're good in moderation, and what I mean by monosaturated polysaturated is the carbon chain structure within the fats. So, examples of omega-9 fats are olive oil, olives, avocados, peanuts, peanut butter, and yeah. So those are really good, but in moderation. And they're have, like I said, antioxidant properties and inhibit cancer cells. But our bodies can make these, so we need to use moderation with that. Along, our bodies can make also omega-6 fats, which are the typical most fats that people eat are a lot of the corn oils and safflower and sunflower oils and all them. Those are the omega-6 fats in canola. But it's the omega-3 fats that actually we want to talk about, and those are the anti-inflammatory fats. Our body cannot make them. We have to get them from our diet. So it's very important to eat a certain amount of those. There's 3 different types: EPA, DHA, and ALA. The ALA has to be converted in the body by an enzyme to a more active form, and those are found more in the chia and flax seeds, and evening primrose, and borage oils. But the EPA and the DHA, they are found in the cold water fish such as mackerel, tuna, herring, sardines, to a lesser extent cod, and then it's found in algae. They are also found in walnuts, the chia and the flax seeds, as I said, black currants, black cumin, borage and evening primrose oil, safflower oil, pomegranate and pumpkin, and sea buckthorn seeds. So I had said that the safflower oil was in the omega-6, and I'm sorry, I'm correcting that. They are actually in the omega-3 fatty acids. The important thing is getting the proper ratio of omega-3, 6, and 9 in our diet, and they suggest a 1 to 2 or a 1 to 3, with the omega-6 and omega-9 being the first number and the omega-3 being the second. So in other words, you want to have, I mean the other way around. Let me correct myself. So you want to have a ratio of 1 part of omega-3 fatty acids to, say, 3 parts of omega-6 and omega-9 daily in your diet. So 1 to 3. Most people are eating 1 to 25. They're eating way too many omega-6 fatty acids. And the omega-3 fatty acids are the ones that are anti-inflammatory. They are needed to help build our lipid cell membranes. Our cell membranes have a little phospholipid outer coating, and That's where all the receptors are for all the different signaling chemicals, um, and everything. Anything that needs to get into the cell or signal the cell needs to land on the cell receptor surface and signal the cell within. And so these cell membranes have to be pliable. Therefore, you have to feed them with the correct fats in order for them to be healthy and pliable. So that's one of the reasons why we need omega-3s. The other reasons is for the inflammation. And they do it via immunomodulation. In other words, they actually, modulate that immune response and over or under and help to balance it out so that we don't get a lot of inflammatory response out of something. They also help to inhibit the release of the chemicals from the white cells that would otherwise signal other sectors of the immune system to mount an inflammatory response. So that's another way that they help decrease inflammation, is they help inhibit the white blood cell release of chemicals. Sorry about that. We had a little interruption. They also inhibit adhesion factors on our cell membranes, which would cause inflammation via signaling pathways. So, in other words, there's these things have to adhere to the cell surface, and there's certain factors that help them adhere better or worse, and they actually inhibit some of those factors that would actually cause the inflammation with the signaling chemicals. So the main thing to take away is what to eat for omega-3 fatty acids, and to keep that ratio as a 1 to 3 or a 1 to 2 balance, and try to get away from that 1 to 25 that most Americans are eating nowadays. All right, medicinal mushrooms, not medicinal and or regular mushrooms. These would include your medicinal reishi, shiitake, chaga, maitake, but they also include all your regular edible mushrooms, the button mushrooms in the store that they sell, the portobellas, the oysters, the lion's mane. All these mushrooms have in them polysaccharides, and polysaccharides are water soluble, so you can make wonderful teas with these. You can put them in soups, and what polysaccharides do is they are immune modulator properties. They modulate that immune response and make sure it's not overworking or underworking. And if it is, then it helps to correct those problems, as I gave an example earlier on that. Mushrooms are also anti-inflammatory. They inhibit inflammatory markers. They're antioxidants, and they're nervines. In other words, nervine is something that calms the nervous system. So a lot of them are nervines. And a lot of them help to normalize what I call the HPA axis. And the HPA is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. And they're all interconnected, and that axis affects the immune system. And that's all related to, a lot of it is related to stress and sleep, and that all affects the immune system, which is other talks. A lot of information out there on that stuff. So mushrooms actually help to normalize that system more. So they help with stress too. They also induce macrophage activity, and they enhance our natural killer cells and our T lymphocyte activities. So they do a lot. Like I said, you can make a tea out of them. You can put them in a soup. And then even if you make an alcoholic tincture out of them, you're still using water, and then you're pulling some other important antioxidant chemicals out with the alcohol. So you're getting an overall, with the tincture, you're getting all the botanicals, good botanicals and immune modulators that you want. Um, but just regular eating mushrooms is great for supporting the immune system. They have the polysaccharides, which are going into the digestive system, and they're water soluble, so they're being absorbed through the body, and they're having those immune modulator effects. Now, a good botanical is elderberry. And elderberry prevents the attachment and or replication of viruses to the cells. In other words, the virus has to attach to the cell in order to inject its DNA or RNA into you in order for it to replicate. Well, elderberry prevents that. So very important. It's water soluble, can be taken as a syrup or a tea. You can also take it as a tincture. And if you have a current infection, you just want to make sure that you do it on a regular, you want to take it on a regular basis throughout the day, and you want to have at least a course of a 3 to 4 day course with it if you have a current infection. Because the virus is constantly getting into our cells and replicating. So we need to keep up on that replication. We need to keep up on the virus attaching to our cells. So we need to take it at regular dose intervals. And you can take tablets. You can take them 3 times a day. You can take tea. Tea you want to drink throughout the day, 2 ounces, say every few hours a day. Yeah, so that's basically how you take elderberry with the syrup. The syrup, you want to take 1 tablespoon every 3 to 4 hours. So you want to take 1 tablespoon like 4 times a day. That's how you take the syrup. Elderberry is also an anti-inflammatory, and it is immunomodulating. And it's also high in vitamin C. So there we have a whole bunch of different factors that are going to help support the immune system. And it's a wonderfully tasting botanical. Now, Echinacea, the one that they use most is Echinacea purpura or Echinacea augustiflora. Purpura is the preferred one. They use Echinacea, usually they use the root, and they use the leaf and flower, because each part of the plant has different things in it that we want to extract out to help with the immune system. This botanical is particularly used in the first 72 hours of infection. So if you have a chronic infection, you really don't want to use Echinacea. Echinacea is only for acute infections. It increases production and activity of the white cells, so the number and the activity. It includes the macrophages, the natural killer cells, the B and the T lymphocytes. So all those cellular immunity sites it helps to increase. It has a strong antioxidant power, and it's best used in an extract form, in other words, a tincture. And it's really appreciated when you have a respiratory ailment, infection. It's really quite helpful in a tincture form to help get rid of that infection quite quickly. And the dose of a tincture would be a 1 to 2 tincture of 3 to 10 mLs daily. Another good botanical is turmeric. And the chemical we're particularly talking about in turmeric is curcumin. It is an antioxidant. It's an anti-inflammatory, antifungal, and bacterial, anti-tumor, lowers blood pressure and sugars, and it stimulates our digestive enzymes, protects the liver, thins the blood, And this is only a few things that it does. It does so many things for us. Um, Hard to just sit here and just name them all off. Too many. Okay, so we use the rhizome of this botanical. It's bitter and it's pungent and aromatic. It's warming and stimulating and but drying. It's best known for its anti-inflammatory action, and it decreases a number of what they call pro-inflammatory factors, such as NF-kappa B. That's just one of many pro-inflammatory factors. So in other words, this is a signaling factor that signals something else to start the inflammation process. It also raises enzyme levels in our phase 2 liver detoxification pathway to help the removal of the toxins and wastes in our bodies, that which can also lead to inflammation. And we talked about this earlier. We need to get rid of as much waste that we can, and improving that liver detoxification pathway will improve the immune system. The dose is 1 tablespoon of powder a day, or you can take tablets, 2 tablets, 500 milligrams each, and you can take that 1 to 3 times per day. And I actually take 1,600 milligrams a day for myself for an ongoing mild inflammatory structural condition that I cannot help. So this wonderful botanical actually helps keep my inflammation at bay. Another good botanical is ginger. Ginger rhizome. It's very drying, heating, and it's stimulating, aromatic, and spicy. Again, very heating. So people that already have a hot disposition might not be able to use as much as what they might want to take. It's very strong anti-inflammatory. It's a carminative and helps relieve gas in the GI system. Strong antioxidant, and it's immune modulator. It's antibacterial, antispasmodic. What I mean by that is it helps allay spasms, especially in the GI tract. It lowers blood pressure, and it's a good blood thinner. And again, these are only a few of its properties. These botanicals have so many good properties. But being an immune modulator, it helps the body with the innate immune system. It helps to, one way it does this is by enhancing the secretion of lysozyme from the macrophages. It also decreases those pro-inflammatory markers, especially PEG2, it's called, and it has a strong antioxidant activity. The dose is 1 inch of the rhizome for the tea, or sliced up, and you gently, lightly boil it for 15 minutes. Or you can take 170 milligrams to 2,000, up to 2,000 milligrams per day. Anything more than 2,000 milligrams is not indicated. And pregnant women can take up to 1,000 milligrams. It's one of the few botanicals that pregnant women can take. We have oregano. Oregano is pungent, sharp, warming, and drying. It's a strong antioxidant, antibacterial, antifungal, antiparasite, antispasmodic, carminative, expectorant. In other words, it helps you to expectorate a lot of mucus or secretions that you have excess. Anti-inflammatory, it's anti-tumor, and it's an immunomodulator. Yes, it's an immune modulator. It's one of the strongest antiseptic herbs studied, and its 2 monoterpenes are the cavercrol and the thymol that are the gives it its antibacterial effects and a lot of its other effects. Those are the main 2 monoterpenes involved. And what it does is it increases phagocytosis, and it decreases the production of those pro-inflammatory cytokines. It's great for bronchial respiratory issues with bronchial constriction and a lot of mucus. The dose is 1 teaspoon of dried herb in 8 ounces of water. Or you can take an extract tincture, 1 to 3, 10 to 30 drops daily. If you use oregano oil, it should be diluted. You should only start out with 1 drop and work your way up only to 4 drops. That's to take it with quite crushed because it's very strong. So you don't want to take any more than 4 drops of oregano oil diluted. Okay, then licorice root. And yes, there's a lot of people don't want to use licorice root due to its glycerin, which increases your blood pressure, which is understandable, but licorice root has so many good qualities about it. It's sweet, moistening, and nutritious. It's an antiviral, immune modulator, antibacterial, anti-mutagenic. In other words, it stops the formation of any kind of mutagenesis, cancer cells forming. It's anti-allergenic. It's anti-inflammatory. It's a demulcent. Demulcent is something that coats, like we were talking about earlier, coating the GI tract so that it can help heal. So that's what a demulcent is. It's a coater. It's an antioxidant. It's an anti-asthma. It protects the liver, the stomach, the heart, and the brain. And these are just a few things that it does again. So some of its immune actions are inhibits the viral replication and gene expression. So I really didn't look up as to what specifically it does for that. If it goes inside the cell and affects the gene expression of the virus, or if it helps to prevent the virus from attaching to the cell like elderberry. But in any case, it does both. So it's a wonderful herb for the immune system. It reduces adhesion force and reducing the virus's ability to attach to our DNA. So adhesion force is, I guess, what we were talking about earlier, that force for which it attaches to the cell wall. It adheres with a specific force, so it actually reduces that force, so it's unable to attach to the cell wall, cell membrane as much, or not as easily. It also enhances T lymphocyte proliferation and suppresses host cell death. In other words, the death of our own cells. It actually suppresses that. If something's going on, then it say, even like if you're getting chemotherapy, I would say that it would suppress a lot of the cell death from the chemotherapy agent. It's a great antiviral, and it's used in hepatitis, chronic fatigue syndrome, and fatty liver disease, and liver cancer. And it inhibits cancer cell growth, differentiation, and cell death. In other words, the cancer cells have to differentiate, and once they differentiate, then they're able to multiply more and become more destructive. So it actually it inhibits that along with the growth and then cell death. It also suppresses cancer metastasis. In other words, cancer traveling to another area of the body to set afoot and start cancer in another area, and also angiogenesis. Now, angiogenesis is the cancer cell's way of building its own vascular system, and they're very ingenious on doing this. And so licorice root actually helps to suppress that, so which is really kind of important. It's metabolized in its active form in the gut, so we need We need to be able to digest it properly, and we need to have that proper amount of intestinal flora in there in order for it to be metabolized into its active form. And just a quick few side notes that our immune system is affected by the HPA system, as I had talked about earlier. All the organs and the hormones within these systems, the hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal, will affect the immune system, as we were talking about. Stress is a big part of this. Stress reduction techniques in the form of nature therapy, meditation, or quiet time, or maybe a favorite hobby that you like that actually just takes you out of the world and into your own world. We only need to do about 15-30 minutes of this a day, and it will really help with stress. We can also use anti-anxiety herbs and adaptogens, and these are botanicals that actually help the body adjust to stress. And these are all very helpful, like holy basil, ashwagandha, lemon balm. These are all very good, adaptogens. And then another interesting tidbit I found was that our IgA, that's that antibody that's produced in our mucous membranes, is increased 6 or greater hours when we have loving or care thoughts. And it's decreased by the same amount of time. In other words, greater than or equal to 6 hours, it's decreased when we have angry thoughts. So there's a perfect example of mind medicine, and there's a lot more examples out there on that. And then also sugar, increased sugar intake has been shown to decrease phagocytosis, gobbling up of those bacteria. It increases inflammatory cytokines, so it increases that long-term inflammation in your body. 1 can of soda or 1 candy bar, about 25 milligrams, can reduce your immune function for up to several hours. So you add in some refined carbohydrates that you've had during the day, which break down to simple sugars and other hidden sugars in our food, and you have a perpetual lowering of the immune system. So we got to be careful about what sugar we put in our body. I want to thank you for being here. And if you want to ask me any questions, you can feel free to at 203-430-0363 or at earthtreasuresva.com, or you can email me at earthtreasuresva@yahoo.com. And I'm also accepting any consultations at this time, and there is a 20% discount with new consults. Thank you all, and strengthen those immune systems, because we need all we can get nowadays.